And hello everybody and welcome to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host Christian. Thank you very much for joining me today. It is another day, another podcast. It is unfortunately not another normal day, because of course it is Inauguration Day. I didn't watch the speech because I don't care. I'll just wait till the annual purge starts to start caring about my well-being. No, it's not. It's just me trying to be funny. But no, it is of course a new. It's a new day in the world, so it should be interesting to see how this plays out. We'll see, but that will not affect movie news. So we will still be doing the podcast as long as Donald Trump doesn't blow up the world. So let us get right to the Movie Pit Podcast. Welcome, everybody. A real welcome, official welcome. Hello, welcome. Hopefully you all having a great day or a nice day, or hopefully you guys are, wherever you are, warm, cold, wherever. Hopefully you guys having a good one and enjoying, and will hopefully enjoy this podcast anyway. So, let's get right to the movie news. If this is your first time listening, of course, this is where we talk about all the latest movie news that has come out throughout the week, and I bundled it all up for you guys into one podcast to give you guys the big movie news items that come out. We'll also talk about the movie trailers, because, oh boy, some trailers come out this week, and we will talk about the movies that are coming out this weekend, so you guys can go and decide what you're going to go watch. Alright, so let us go on to the first news item of the day, which is unfortunately a sad one. I found out about this last night. Miguel Ferrer, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I always have trouble pronouncing his last name. But Miguel Ferrer, that's how I've been hearing it, has sadly passed away at the age of 61 after losing his battle to throat cancer. And if you're not familiar with the name, he's had an amazing career ranging from TV to film, and he's mostly been sticking kind of to the TV side, but he has popped up in films every now and then. He's had a long career, broke out into the scene with various guest appearances on shows like Magnum P.I. and Chips, and he was even in the TV miniseries The Stand, before he landed a big role in Twin Peaks as an FBI agent. The same role he was going to reprise in the revival that is set to premiere this May of Twin Peaks. Film-wise, his biggest role, I think most people will recognize him, is from RoboCop. He played, of course, the original RoboCop. He played Bob Morton, the corporate, very ambitious, somewhat sleazy corporate worker who was in charge of the RoboCop program. He also voiced, this is how I became familiar with him, Shan Yu in the Disney animated film Mulan. And he, of course, he's been in a bunch of other TV shows. His most famous one was Crossing Jordan. He was also on the 2007 show Bionic Woman, the 2011 show The Protector. He was also the voice of Vandal Savage on Young Justice. He had a small role in Iron Man 3 as the Vice President. And he was most recently on NCIS Los Angeles, where he had a very big role, and that kind of course kept him around TV wise. He was, again, if you're not familiar with the name, you will instantly know who he is by seeing him. His voice is instantly recognizable, he was around for a while. He was a 40-plus year career, I believe I read somewhere. So he had a tremendous just poise about him. There was just something about him that when you kind of walked into a room, you knew he was going to be playing this very kind of serious, no-nonsense kind of character. And that was kind of cool. So he was always one of my favorites. Every time he kind of popped in something, I kind of knew that he was going to bring the best of what he could into that role. So Miguel Ferrer has sadly passed away, and of course my thoughts, my prayers go out to him and his family, and hopefully yours will as well. So let's move on to other news items. One news item particular that came out last week after the podcast went up, which was one that a lot of people have been wondering what was going to happen with all this. Disney will not digitally recreate Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia for future Star Wars movies. Now, of course, some are still mourning Carrie Fisher's death, and but of course, one of the big things that came out, especially after she passed away, was what are they going to do with Princess Leia, considering that there was a report that came out that's saying that she still had some big scenes to film. And one of the things that was being thrown around is that maybe they'll use digital images to bring her character back, similar to what they did to a character in Rogue One. I'm not going to spoil it just in case you guys haven't seen it, but they do that in Rogue One. Eventually, I will spoil that role, so if you haven't seen Rogue One, do yourself a favor and go out there and watch it. But Star Wars has done it, although the Rogue One thing makes more sense considering it was a prequel and all that stuff. But nonetheless, Disney and Lucasfilm announced that they will not use that feature, that CGI, to bring back her character for Episode 9 because Fisher had already finished filming all her scenes for Episode 8, despite what some rumors suggested. So here's their official statement saying, quote, "We don't normally respond to fan or press speculation, but there is a rumor circling that we would like to address. We want to assure our fans that Lucasfilm has no plans to digitally recreate Carrie Fisher's performance as Princess or General Leia Organa. Carrie Fisher was and is and will always be part of the Lucasfilm family. She was our princess, our general, and more importantly, our friend. We are still hurting from her loss. We cherish her memory and legacy as Princess Leia and will always strive to honor everything she gave to Star Wars." So I mentioned, I was talking to some people, and I think I mentioned briefly when we talked about this last time, was that using the digital recreation made sense in Rogue One in some way. I mean, some people are still upset or causing some stir about them using that kind of technology for the actor that they used it for. But in my opinion, it made sense because it was a prequel, so you can't really have necessarily Rogue One without his character being in the film. Yes, you could have recast the role, but there is something about that certain actor and what he brought to that role that made that role special. Now, of course, he's not around, and they use digital imagery to recreate it, and it's this whole other thing. But when it comes to Carrie Fisher, I think recreating her as Princess Leia would be different because we haven't seen what she's done in Episode 8 yet, so we don't know kind of where, what to gauge and how to gauge it, and kind of how big her role will be really in Episode 9. Although obviously she filmed a big chunk of Episode 8 from various reports, and she was going to have a much bigger role. But I don't know if we can really fully discuss this without knowing what her role was in Episode 8. But I think the idea of them not using this technology and this method of bringing Carrie Fisher back as Princess Leia is a good move. One, because the whole situation is different movie-wise. Another thing is, and more importantly, is besides honoring, of course, Carrie Fisher as a person, is that the technology isn't there yet. Even in Rogue One, although the Rogue One is probably the best I've seen it used personally, it's still not perfect. So there is that. So I'm sure many fans were eager. Obviously, this came out late last week, but I'm sure that if people didn't know about this and now they know, hopefully it will ease them down just a bit. So, all right. So let's move on to this week's news items. The first one was something I wasn't going to talk about, but it's so utterly ridiculous that I feel like I need to talk about it just so I can get it out of me. The Emoji movie.
Why? Why would they do this?
Son of a bitch!
Has released its voice cast, or at least a first round of voice casting. Sony Pictures has released more names for their Emoji film. We already knew that TJ Miller was going to be the lead voice for the film. He's playing a character, or an emoji, I should say, named Gene, who is capable of expressing a whole range of emotions due to being born without a filter. So there's that. Comedian Stephen Knight will voice the meh emoji. He was actually in the big focal point of the first teaser that came out. James Corden will voice Gene's friend, High Five. You can imagine how they spell that and what his emoji will be. But the new voice casts include Jake T. Austin, Jennifer Coolidge from Two Broke Girls, Maya Rudolph, who will voice the smiley emoji called Smiler, and finally, and this is the one where I felt like I need to talk about just so I can get it out, Patrick Stewart, yes, that Sir Patrick Stewart, will voice Poop. Yes, the poop emoji.
Son of a bitch!
It's first of all, the fact that no, you know what? No, we're moving on. No, I'm not even gonna get to it because I'm gonna get angry, and I promised myself I wouldn't get angry on the podcast, at least not for a while. So let's just move on. Some other quick news items. Tim Story, who directed the Ride Along films and directed the Fantastic Four films, the two previous ones, not the latest one that was directed by Josh Trank. He is now set to direct the reboots for Shaft. The film is being written by the Goldbergs' executive producer Alex Barnow and Blackish creator Kenya Barris. They will write the script. There's no word yet on what the film will be about, but now that they have a director, I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more of Shaft in the future. The Division, the video game adaptation, has gotten a director. The film will now be directed by, I can't talk now, I'm still thinking about the Emoji movie. The film will be directed by Stephen Gaghan. He recently directed the Matthew McConaughey film Gold, which we'll talk about next week. That comes out next week, so we'll talk about that. But Gaghan actually has some experience with video games because he co-wrote the campaign story for Call of Duty Ghosts. And I'm sure some of you who aren't video gamers are looking at, or you listening to this being like, I don't know what that means. I don't know why I made you sound like a fanboy. I don't know what that means, which is fair. I mean, but he does have experience with video games, so this being a video game movie could help. Also, he is a two-time Oscar nominated, or one time I should say, he got nominated for an Oscar for the screenplay of Syriana and won the Oscar for adapted screenplay for Traffic. So he's not, and Gold is getting some mixed reviews. They're saying it's good, but it's not great. But yeah, so getting a director like this seems pretty on the up and up for video game films. The film already has Jake Gyllenhaal in the film, and if I'm correct, I believe he's also producing the film. I could be wrong about that, but Jake Gyllenhaal is already cast in the film. Also, Jessica Chastain is also still attached to the film. It was announced it was announced last year. I think it was like after the summer that she was in talks for the film. It looks like she is still attached to the film at this point. So those are two pretty big names so far. And for those unfamiliar with the game, by the way, The Division, it's set in New York City after this disease pretty much takes over, and it's a big outbreak. So it's a post-apocalyptic kind of video game, and the players, they play as members of the strategic Homeland Division tasked with rebuilding the organization's operations in the now crime-ridden Manhattan, while also investigating the cause of the outbreak. So you got a little post-apocalyptic thriller vibe going on with that. So of course, video game films haven't been met with much, fanfare, because most of them, tend to not be very good, and some of them tend to be just, oh man, god awful. But some of them are okay. Put it using that term loosely a little bit. So, but with Gaghan's knowledge of video games and Jake Gyllenhaal and Jessica Chastain attached, I think we can remain somewhat optimistic for The Division. A lot of people were, trying to hang the fates of video game films with Assassin's Creed that came out in December last month, and that didn't turn out so hot. But we'll see what happens with The Division. There's no production date just yet for this, but now they have a director and they have some stars. I think we'll probably be hearing a little bit more of The Division somewhere down the line. So let's move on to some remake news. Anne Hathaway is in talks for the Dirty Rotten Scoundrels remake that has been retitled Nasty Women. Yeah. It looks like Anne Hathaway could join the female-fronted remake of the already mentioned film. The film was originally directed by Frank Oz, and it was a film in 1988, which was also a remake, by the way, of a film called Bedtime Stories, and it starred Steve Martin and Michael Caine as con men who were trying to swindle an heiress. This remake, Nasty Women, will find two scam artists, one low rent and one high class, who compete to swindle a naive tech prodigy out of his fortune. The film already has Rebel Wilson attached to star, and she also produced the film under her Camp Sugar Productions banner. The film continues the trend of course, female gender swapping films like Ghostbusters. I believe they're still filming Ocean's 8 film, which is a spin-off of Ocean's 11, that coincidentally also stars Anne Hathaway, and the Splash remake that they're doing with Jillian Bell and Channing Tatum. No word yet on who will play who, but we can probably assume that maybe Anne Hathaway will play the higher class one, and Rebel Wilson will play the lower class one, but we never know. They could switch it up. We'll see. There's no word on when production on the film will start. The film doesn't currently have a director, so we'll have to wait a little bit on that. The other remake news, this one, I don't know, it kind of happened and everyone was really upset about it, and it kind of died down a little bit. At least the hate, from what I've seen, has died down. There's a remake in the works for White Man Can't Jump, the early 90s film. If you haven't seen White Man Can't Jump, I do recommend you watch it. It actually is very good. Is getting a remake treatment from a name that we mentioned earlier, Kenya Barris, the creator of the ABC show Blackish. Barris is developing the remake with actual NBA stars in Los Angeles Clippers player Blake Griffin and California Panthers center Ryan Khalil, who produced their film because apparently they have a production banner of Mortal Media, so they will produce the film as well. They won't star in the film, they're producing it. Who knows? I don't know. The original film, if you didn't know, by the way, was directed by Ron Shelton, who directed the great films like Bull Durham and Tin Cup, and starred Woody Harrelson as a former college basketball player who essentially really makes his money basically hustling street ballers, if that's what they were called, who assume that he can't play because, he's white. And then Billy eventually meets, his name in the film was Billy, meets Wesley Snipes' character on the court and beats him twice. And then the two, of course, pair up for a 2-on-2 tournament so they can essentially just make more money. And the film also the film had this really interesting arc where it had Rosie Perez as one of their girlfriends. I forget which one she was, but she was a girlfriend to one of them, and she was obsessed with winning on Jeopardy. And it was like this really weird arc in the film. It was this really weird subplot for that. I don't know. It was. I remember it being really weird. I haven't seen the movie in a while, but I remember that for some reason because I still watch Jeopardy. I actually do watch Jeopardy to this day, and that's the only reason I remember. Anyway, White Man Can't Jump is being developed. There's no news on who's gonna star, who's directing, or anything like that. The remake is in the works, and I'm pretty sure people are still upset about it. But I have no real personal attachment to this film. I know when it was announced, they were like, "Oh, how dare they!" But it's kind of died down a little since then, so we'll see. All right, let's move on to the next news item. Ty Sheridan talks Ready Player One. Now, the Ernest Cline best-selling book, Ready Player One, which you haven't read, I highly recommend you do. It's pretty good. Is ready to be adapted by Steven Spielberg, who will be directing the film. And Ty Sheridan, the star of the film, who will be playing the lead character of Wade Watts, talked about the film, giving fans some details for the film that may make some fans very happy. Sheridan was promoting his new film, Detour, which is an independent movie, and was asked about the adaptation, which he happily, started just giving out quotes. Now, for those unfamiliar with Ready Player One, again, I highly recommend you read it if you haven't already. It's a novel set in the future, and it's basically filled with 80s pop culture, by the way, including Steven Spielberg's work, so it should be interesting to see if he drops his name in there and starts doing his own work. But it's set in the future where the world is pretty much, in shambles. It's a post-apocalyptic world. And the only escape is something called the Oasis. And it's a virtual universe, kind of virtual reality kind of thing, that is more stable than the real world, and that's where people go to escape everything. And it was created by a billionaire named James Halliday. And one day, Halliday passes away, and he sends a message to everyone left in the Oasis, and he says that he left an Easter egg in the Oasis, and whoever finds it will basically get Halliday's all of his money and will take total control of the Oasis. And of course, it leads to an adventure, and Wade Watts, which will again be played by Ty Sheridan, he finds one of the Easter eggs. It's in the back cover, so it's not a spoiler. Obviously, if he didn't find it, there'd be no book. But he is the lead character, and he finds one, and he goes on this adventure, and he meets a bunch of other people, and he meets a rival company that's also trying to take over the Oasis. It's a very good book. It's very good, and if you know your 80s pop culture, you'll just enjoy it a hell of a lot more. It's fairly good. It's a fairly quick read too, so if you want to go check that out, highly recommend you do. But Sheridan, he said that the film will take the film will be set in the Oasis 60% of the time, with the other 40% being placed in the real world, which sounds pretty much like Ernest Cline's story. The majority of the book does take place in the Oasis, so they're sticking very close to that. Sheridan also said that his scenes in the Oasis were shot with motion capture, because in the Oasis, you're using an avatar to get around, so no one looks the way they obviously look. So and Sheridan made this little joke saying he doesn't even know what his avatar looks like, although he had some input. So everyone's using an avatar, so it looks like everyone is going to be using motion capture. So it should be very interesting to see kind of how Spielberg plays around with the Oasis technology and special effects. So it should be very interesting. If you've read the book, you kind of know. I don't want to spoil anything, but you kind of know that it should be interesting to see kind of how he does some of those scenes. So Ready Player One does have a cast already. It has a great cast so far. Mark Rylance, who has worked with Spielberg in the past already on the BFG and Bridge of Spies, he's in the film. Simon Pegg's in the film. T.J. Miller, Olivia Cook, and Ben Mendelsohn, who was just recently in Rogue One. So they're all in the film. The film will be released on March 30th next year. So I'm assuming that we'll probably get some sort of trailer probably in the summer or sometime late next year. Hopefully. We'll see. So yeah, I'm excited for Ready Player One, and Ty Sheridan's comments that 60% of the film will take place in the Oasis could be very interesting. So Steven Spielberg, of course, no stranger to special effects. So we'll see how he plays around with the world. And the book has a very big fan following. So hopefully Spielberg, I know Spielberg knows this, so we'll see what he kind of does with that. All right, so let's move on to the next news item, which isn't shocking, but it's just a shame that this happened. Legendary Pictures CEO Thomas Tull leaves the company. Now, Legendary Pictures is responsible for a lot of films, surprisingly a lot more films than I even remembered. So if you need a little reminder, if you don't know too much, Legendary Films, or Legendary Pictures, I should say, at the time before it became this really big studio, was known as Legendary Entertainment, but nonetheless, the Legendary name, the banner, is responsible for films like Nolan's Batman films, Superman Returns, Man of Steel, since we're talking about Superman, 300, Watchmen, The Hangover films, Inception, 42, Pacific Rim, Godzilla, Jurassic World, Crimson Peak, They're also going to be responsible for Kong Skull Island coming out, The Great Wall, Pacific Rim 2. They're also doing Godzilla 2 and Kong vs. Godzilla, and the new adaptation of Dune. So this is a studio that has done a lot of films in the past, and all of that is all that comes from Thomas Tull, who is the man that founded the company back in 2000. So this is relatively still a new-ish company. It's been around for a while, but it didn't really start making its, big name until the Nolan Batman films. So Thomas Tull, he actually sold Legendary to a Chinese company called the Dalian Wanda Group back in early 2016 for $3.5 billion. So I guess he was ready to kind of step down a little bit, but according to the Hollywood Reporter, it looks like Thomas Tull has finally stepped down from the company. And despite what the Hollywood Reporter claimed earlier, there was a quote saying that the company, the Wanda Group, became frustrated with his management over recent projects like The Great Wall and the currently filming Pacific Rim 2. But the Wanda Group came out saying that is not the case. That's just speculation. We are very happy with what he's done, and I'm verbatim. That's not actual quote, but they were happy they were happy with what he has done, and the change was something that was coming for a while, and it just so happens to be now. So it's a bit of a shame now. And they also mentioned that the Great Wall, the whole Great Wall comment, they were like, that's just, that's speculation. That's not even true, because the Great Wall hasn't even opened globally. It's just open in China so far, and it's open, I think, maybe like 2 other countries. So it hasn't even done its like big open yet. So be wanting to calm down about that. But despite this, Tull really was like a nerd. He was a nerd for a lot of these, for a lot of the films he was doing. He was basically involved in a lot of films. He was more hands-on from what, of course, reports have come out, that he was more hands-on. He's a more hands-on CEO than any other CEO of any other company involved. He even came up with some of the story details for The Great Wall and about a lot of other films that Legendary was involved in. So, and he will remain as a producer, by the way, on these next monster films like Godzilla 2, I should say, King Kong, I was trying to say, and Kong vs. Godzilla, and he will also be a producer on Dune. So he will still have his name attached to Legendary, at least for the moment. He's still involved with the company, just in a very, of course, lesser way than he already was. But it's kind of a shame to see him go. We knew it was going to happen once he sold the company, but Legendary has been making these great films, so I know they will go on to produce other great films as well, but seeing him no longer involved the way he was is a bit of a shame, because he was such a nerd. So, yeah. Alright, let's move on to the next news item, which involves Sony Pictures, because they have officially announced the animated Spider-Man film. So Sony Pictures is, of course, doubling down, really, on their Spider-Man properties. They not only have the Tom Holland-led film Spider-Man Homecoming coming out this year, but they also now officially announced, the Untitled animated film that was announced, I believe it was announced early last year, if I'm not mistaken. We know that Phil Lord will write the film. Of course, he will also executive produce the film with his on-screen partner Chris Miller, and the film will be directed by Bob Persichilli. I think that's how you say his name. He directed The Little Prince, which is getting some pretty great reviews. But at the presentation where they announced this, they announced that Peter Ramsey, who was a director on Rise of the Guardians, which wasn't that bad, that he will also be directing the film, co-directing the film with Persichilli. I think that's how you say his last name. So they announced there's a big presentation that Sony did, and that's where they announced the cast for the Emoji movie. But also for this, they officially announced it, because it wasn't officially announced. It was just like, oh, we're gonna do it. It was just kind of one of those like, yeah, we're gonna do it. We just haven't officially greenlit it yet. But they also announced at the presentation that Miles Morales will indeed be the lead for the standalone animated Spider-Man film. Now, they mentioned it's a standalone film, which means it will not be connected to the live-action Spider-Man films, which means it will not be connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. However, seeing Miles Morales on the big screen as Spider-Man should please a lot of fans. Now, for those of you not familiar with Miles Morales, he is an African-American Puerto Rican teenager who took the mantle of Spider-Man back in 2011 and even made the nationwide news when this happened, because of course people don't really understand comic books that much, because he is the Spider-Man in Marvel Comics Ultimate storyline. For those of you guys who don't know about the Ultimate storyline, it's basically, you should just, first of all, you should ask your more comic book nerdy friend about it. I'm going to give you the really like gritty, not really real explanation. It is essentially somewhat a alternate universe where all the Marvel characters are kind of basically the same, but they have just little tweaks to them that are very different. Yeah, that's kind of what it is. So yeah, let's go with that. But yeah, Miles Morales has took over the Spider-Man mantle back in 2011 for Marvel Comics Ultimates, not Marvel Comics. Just ask your comic book friend. You know which one it is. He'll tell you better than I will. But yeah, either way, I'm sure fans will be eager to see Miles Morales on the big screen. They also said the film will come out on December 21st, 2018. So we'll probably be hearing a little bit more about this project sometime. Probably, I will assume that we're probably it's gonna be pretty quiet, with the exception of like maybe some cast members. But I'm pretty sure we'll probably won't be hearing about this until next year, cast-wise anyway. But we'll see. Apparently they showed some like unfinished scenes there, or just one scene I should say. But yeah, it should be interesting to see kind of where this plays out. And seeing Miles Morales, pretty interesting. Even though we know it won't be attached to the live-action films, it'd still be pretty cool. Will be split into 2 films, which means Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Black Adam character will be getting his own film. Now, it's been quite a while since we've heard anything substantial about DC Entertainment and Warner Bros. Adaptation of Shazam. So, last we heard, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was going to play the film's villain, Black Adam. If you're not familiar, I'll get to who the character is, just in case you don't know. But recently, Johnson revealed that he had a meeting with the people in charge, and now we know what the meeting was all about, that Black Adam will be getting his own film, and that Shazam will be split into 2 films, one following Johnson's Black Adam, and the other following the hero, Shazam. Like, now, for those that are unfamiliar, Shazam, also known as Captain Marvel, although they're probably going to, play that down, because, we got our own Captain Marvel, played by Brie Larson, coming out soon, gets his powers via pretty much a transformation from his human form, known as Billy Baston, by the way, into the superpowered entity, because he is an entity, we'll just put it that way, who has super strength, speed, and even, I think, mental powers, mental abilities. I could be wrong about that. For some reason, I saw that marked down, and I wrote it down for some reason. But on the other end, we have Black Adam, who is Shazam's arch enemy, who started off as an ancient Egyptian predecessor to the entity known as Shazam. Before he, when he got his powers, he then became corrupt, and then he became his arch enemy. Although recently, or not so recently, I mean, they've done it over the years as well, but in the comics, he sometimes is written as kind of an anti-hero. But it looks like they're going with the villain route for these films. So either way, it should be interesting to see how this plays out, considering that DC and Warner Brothers still feels like they're trying to figure out their extended universe, which is not something you want to say or even think about or read about, because it's come on. However, the idea of splitting Shazam into 2 films, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who is one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, potentially appearing in both, could be a lot of fun. I mean, come on. It is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson after all. Then again, you say the good thing and then you're like, oh, well, yeah, it's like, yeah, but it's the DC Extended Universe and they're, on very thin ice right now with a lot of us. I don't know. But, yeah, I don't know. I think the idea is interesting, but at the same time, I feel like, how are they going to make that work? I want to see how they make that work. I don't think there's any writers to the film, at least not from the report that I was looking at. So right now we only have Dwayne Johnson attached to the Shazam film. We know it's going to take place in the DC Extended Universe, so it should be interesting. I mean, there was also that picture with Dwayne Johnson and Henry Cavill, or Cavill, however you want to pronounce his last name, sitting down and drinking together, and everyone went crazy because they were like, oh, it's Black Adam and Superman in the same picture. So I don't know. It should be interesting to see kind of how that works out. I still, I've talked about the DC Warner Brothers Extended Universe on the podcast many times. It just feels like they don't know what they're doing a lot of the time. And now this split, making Shazam into 2 films, it just feels like they're adding more films to their already, packed schedule that they got going on. And, Flash is already taking a bit of a hit. Batman looks like it's being slowed down a lot. And I don't know. I mean, I want to stay positive, but at the same time, it's like I'm looking at everything that has come before this news item. It's like, I don't know. So, I don't know. I remain hopeful because it is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but we'll see. And speaking of pictures, by the way, I want to address this picture thing because there's a picture of Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman and Pierce Brosnan together, and it kind of just blew up when it happened, and everyone was like, is Ryan Reynolds hinting that that Hugh Jackman and Pierce Brosnan are going to be in Deadpool 2 as Logan and Cable? First of all, everyone needs to calm the hell down. It was just a picture. Second, it was just a picture. Really, I mean, you guys need to calm down. I mean, when I saw the picture, honestly, when I saw the picture, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, all 3 of them together. Not once in my mind that I was like, oh, Pierce Brosnan could be playing Cable. No. It's not because I don't want Pierce Brosnan to play Cable. I think that choice would be kind of a left field, but I would wait to see if that was true and wait to see, his performance in the film. And as for the whole Hugh Jackman thing, there's always that talk about like, oh, won't he be in Deadpool 2, especially now that, all this Logan stuff is coming out, and we'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it's true, then okay. But I'm not gonna get crazy just because we have two big comic book stars in Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds that take a picture together with another star that could potentially and potentially not be playing another big comic book character. I'm not gonna get crazy over a picture. If it happens, then okay. I will gladly, get on the hype train. But at the same time, it's like, just settle down. It's just a picture. All right, and this is the final news item of the week, and this literally, obviously you guys won't know this, but this is something that popped out as I was editing the podcast, and I wanted to include it here on this podcast. Apparently, there is a shortlist released by The Wrap of rumored names for the Green Lantern Corps movie, and one of them is very surprising. So The Wrap released the shortlist. Obviously, we talked about Green Lantern Corps last week. They were doing a film, and that it was described as a lethal weapon in space in a lot of ways. And they also said that 2 Green Lanterns would be in the film, Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. But now this cast list, this rumored short list of actors up for the role or in consideration for the role for Green Lantern Corps and for Hal Jordan is very surprising. So this is the list that The Wrap released: Tom Cruise, Jake Gyllenhaal, Armie Hammer, Bradley Cooper, Joe McHale, and Ryan Reynolds. So first of all, a few things should jump out. Tom Cruise is the oldest on the list. He's 54 at the moment. And the youngest person on the list is Armie Hammer, who's 30. This is interesting. This is a very interesting list. One, because Ryan Reynolds, of course, he already played Hal Jordan in the film they had done 2011. And say whatever you will about the film, Ryan Reynolds actually did a pretty good job. It wasn't his best job, and he was probably doing the best he could with the material that he had, which wasn't very good. But still, it should be interesting that they put his name on the list. Now, again, this is just a rumor. This is a short list of actors the Wrap apparently got from whoever their source is in the film. Now, keep in mind, the film is still in the early stages, so none of these people could get the Green Lantern job. However, the fact that Ryan Reynolds is on this early short list of actors does say something. Tom Cruise, as much as I know a lot of people don't like Tom Cruise for, probably very acceptable reasons, I just don't see him playing Hal Jordan. I don't. Jake Gyllenhaal, he's interesting. I think he'd be a very interesting choice. I think he probably would get it pretty cool. Bradley Cooper's another interesting choice. I don't know if I see Bradley Cooper. I mean, he's already Rocky Raccoon. Come on. And Joel McHale, that's an interesting list, and I think that would be pretty cool if he gets it. I think if we're gonna do something off this list, I think Joel McHale is kind of like the dark horse, but I think it'd be kind of the most interesting. I know as soon as I say this, people are like, oh my god, get off him. Armie Hammer, he's great. Some of the roles he's picked so far haven't been so great. Like, let's face it, he was not the worst thing about the Lone Ranger. You want to put the blame on the Lone Ranger on someone? We know exactly who to put it on. It was not Armie Hammer. Armie Hammer is just struggling, and he's got a look to him. He's got a great look to him. He was gonna play Batman in the Justice League movie that George Miller was gonna direct before that got canceled. And he's been struggling to find something really solid, and he was great in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which was a very underappreciated film that no one saw, which is a damn shame because it's actually pretty good. I don't know. I think he would be pretty good, Hal Jordan. So it's still throwing me that they are considering to put Ryan Reynolds back on the list, only because he's already played Hal Jordan before, so he's gonna have to go through the motions all over again. Because we know there is no way in hell they're gonna try to be like, no, this is already the events of what happened. They're gonna treat Green Lantern as already established. They're not gonna do that. Or maybe they'd be like, let's give him another shot. Why not? He did a good job for us before. Let's put him in again. I don't know. So this list, it's pretty interesting. I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty interesting. I saw it. I'm like, I'll just include it on the Facebook page. Nope, because I saw Ryan Reynolds' name on it. So it's a very interesting list. So man, that's interesting. It really is. We'll see what happens. I don't know what's gonna happen. Jake Gyllenhaal has actually been trying to do a comic book movie for a while. Now that I'm looking at it, he's been trying to do a comic book movie for a while too. So it should be interesting to see kind of maybe if he wants to do it as well. And I want to say Armie Hammer did something too recently. I think he did. Okay, I have the report. Again, it's a last minute thing, and now I'm looking through the rap report right here in front of me, and they do mention that Gyllenhaal has been wanting to do a comic book movie for a while, and that Armie Hammer did indeed troll, according to them, some fans about playing Green Lantern. Apparently, he did a something on social media. I'm trying to figure out what it was. He did a picture. He did a picture of him in the quote Green Lantern mask, which is essentially a picture of him with the Lone Ranger mask just painted green. This is interesting. Tom Cruise, Ryan Reynolds, Jake Gyllenhaal, Armie Hammer, Bradley Cooper, Joel McHale. I don't know. Would you guys want to see any of those? It should be. I don't know. Should be interesting. So that's all the news items that have come out, at least at the time of this, of course, recording for the week. Let us move on to trailer talk, We had quite a few trailers drop this week. Of course, I'm just going to talk about those big two, but I will mention that there is a trailer for My Life as a Zucchini. It is right now, at the moment, being considered to potentially be one of the Oscar-nominated animated films, so that trailer's out there. There's a new trailer for Before I Fall, which is we've talked about it on the podcast before. It is kind of a Groundhog Day-esque teeny bopper. That sounded like I'm demeaning the film, but it's a bunch of teenagers in the movie, so it's based off a young adult novel, I believe. So Before I Fall is a new trailer that came out. There's a trailer for a Woody Harrelson film that's based off a graphic novel called Wilson. That looks pretty funny. There's a new trailer for the Becklow Experiment that looks pretty cool. It's pretty much like it's just an extended TV spot. It's just 1 minute, but it shows off some new footage there. There is a new trailer for the Lost City of Z. That looks pretty cool. Charlie Hunnam's in there, Tom Holland's in there, Sienna Miller, Robert Pattinson, who almost looks just unrecognizable until you get a real good look at him. The trailer's just really moody. It's very like just tense and gritty. I really can't wait to watch this film, because this film has been in developmental hell for a very long time, and the trailers so far have been nothing but great, so I can't wait to watch that. The first trailer for Anne Hathaway's kaiju film Colossal, which just hearing that, it's like, oh, it's Anne Hathaway in a kaiju film, get out. And then you watch the trailer, it's like, huh, that's not how I expected that film to go. So that came out. It looks very quirky and odd, and it premiered at Fantastic Fest last year, and it got nothing but great rave reviews, at least from what I saw. So finally, it's finally coming out, and a lot of people are saying that we will be surprised at the film. There's a lot more going on in the film. There's a deeper meaning to the film than what the trailer will probably have you believe. So that came out. But the two biggest trailers that came out this week are, of course, the new Power Rangers trailer and the new Logan trailer. So we're going to talk about Power Rangers first, because that's my childhood right there. And it looks it looks good. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, I have a big cheese on my face right now, and I had a big cheese watching the trailer. It is basically my childhood coming to life with better effects.
The answer to what is happening to you is here. You five are the Power Rangers.
Did I just hear you say we're Power Rangers?
Is this some kind of joke? We're talking to a wall.
I was kind of expecting a little more.
So where were you last night?
Me and 4 kids found a spaceship buried underground. I'm pretty sure I'm a superhero.
Cool. Pee in that cup.
I liked it. You know, I liked the trailer. When the first trailer came out, I was very surprised. Everyone was like, oh, they're making a new Power Rangers movie. And then everyone saw the trailer and it was like, oh, no, it could be good. And then this trailer comes out, and it looks really good. I'm not going to lie. Look, I'm not going to sit here and defend the old Power Rangers TV show, because I know if I go back and watch it, and I've tried to go back and watch it, if I go back and watch it, it's going to be cheesy as hell. Alright, I know. It's going to be corny as hell. I'm going to just probably like turn it off halfway through the episode because it's so damn cheesy. But when I was a kid, I loved that shit. And this trailer, if this is the movie that came out during my childhood, I would have forced my parents to go take me to watch this movie 1,000 times, because that's how good cheesy it looks. I like it. I like the trailer. I really dug it. There's a moment where they say it's morphing time in the trailer, and it kind of came off as a little cheesy, but I was like, you know what? It's Power Rangers. Of course it's gonna be cheesy. And it looks good. We get a good look at the Zords. Finally we get a good look at the Ranger suits. And I know that was a big thing when the first picture came out. They're like, oh, the Ranger suits, they look terrible. I'm going to tell you right now, when you see them in that trailer and they're all in action, they're moving around, they look pretty sweet. I'm not going to lie. They look pretty awesome. And the Zords look pretty cool. We get a brief glimpse, just a very small glimpse of the Megazord. And of course, you know, the pictures of the toys came out, but the toys don't really do it justice too much. So we get a brief glimpse of the Megazord in the film, and it looks interesting. I'm pretty sure they're gonna save that money shot for the movie and probably like TV spots around the time the movie comes out. But the Zords look pretty cool. We get first look at the new Alpha 5, and of course, you know, when the Alpha 5 picture came out, everyone was like, "Kill it with fire! Kill it with fire!" And it does look very creepy. If I saw that in real life, I'd probably punch it or just run away in terror. It's one or the other. But yeah, it's voiced by Bill Hader. We also see Bryan Cranston as Zordon, or of course we just see his face. It's not the cheesy 90s version of Zordon. It's basically a wall. But it's Bryan Cranston. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We do see Goldar, and I know a lot of people are gonna be like, "That's not the Goldar that I know." Okay, yes, we know they had to change stuff, and we'll obviously see what happens with that. But I'm looking forward to it. I really am. Elizabeth Banks as Rita Repulsa, great. I can't wait for it. Honestly, I really like this trailer, and not just because it was my probably because it was my childhood. I gotta be honest, but it doesn't matter. It was a good, cheesy trailer. Not too cheesy. I mean, it's taking itself a little seriously. It's having more fun. You know, when the first trailer came out, everyone was like, "Oh, it's so dark and it's almost Chronicle-like." And this film, in this trailer, they're popping jokes left and right, and they got to. I mean, it's the Power Rangers. It's gonna have a little cheese. So if you go out there like, "Oh, it's so cheesy," well, that's kind of the point. Just settle down. All right, so let's move on to the other trailer, which was Logan. It's so good. It's so good. It was such a good trailer. Obviously people are gonna, argue about whether this trailer is better than the last trailer, and that last trailer was awesome. Having the Johnny Cash song over it, it completely sold everyone. And this trailer shows off a lot of the action. We get a really good glimpse of X-23 just messing people up. We get a little bit more shots of Logan, being the new Logan that he is now.
This is what life looks like. People who love each other. A home. You should take a moment. Feel it. Still have time.
The interesting thing, and this is the thing that I think some people are kind of going to start arguing about, is the fact that in Logan, obviously it takes place in the future. It's not taking place in present day. It's taking place in the future. There is it's set in a world where X-Men comics are real, and I think that's kind of interesting. And when I saw that, I was like, "Huh, that's interesting." But my first thought wasn't, "Oh, that's so stupid." No, my first thought was, that's interesting because Logan addresses it. He addresses it like, "Oh, maybe, yeah, some of this happened. Probably not the way that they write it, draw it down, but it happened, and probably didn't happen that way." And I think that's going to play into the film. It seems like a really kind of out of touch. Not out of touch, but it kind of seems like a little bit, I heard someone compare it a little bit to Deadpool in the sense that it's kind of breaking the fourth wall, in a sense. But I think, kind of just looking at this as a whole, we know the journey that Wolverine will probably be on a little bit. He's tired of everything. He's not healing as quick as he is. He's getting older. He's finally getting old. And seeing his adventures, seeing his potentially friends that are no longer around, and seeing them in comic book form, and seeing them, being put on this this kind of pedestal a little bit, and seeing them being seen as heroes and their adventures being made into enjoyment, into a comic, that will probably take a toll on Wolverine too, as I should say Logan as a person, because he has to relive some of those memories, because he knows what really happened compared to what these people are writing, potentially not, obviously those people probably weren't there. I think that's kind of interesting, and I think hopefully that kind of plays, hopefully that's the way they played out in the film. In the trailer, it does seem out of place because, you have all these other stuff going on, but I'm thinking whole picture. In the trailer, doesn't kind of match a little bit, but it's kind of cool. And the little girl they got to play X-23, because that's essentially who she is. She's awesome. She looks she looks like she can mess some people up. So I'm not gonna mess with her, because she probably, sucked a lot of that stuff up. But yeah, she looks great. Patrick Stewart's in there as well. We see a little bit more of him, and it just looks awesome. It looks great. It looks like a great trailer. I can't wait to watch it. It's just so good. There's so many movies coming out that are so good. So yeah, so those are the trailers that came out this week. If you want to check out those trailers, links will be down below in the description/show notes area, so you guys go check those out. Alright, let's move on to this week's releases. We have quite a few releases for you guys. First off, of course, we'll talk about the limited releases. First one is The Red Turtle. It is a dialogue-less film, so there's no dialogue in the film, that follows the major life stages of a castaway on a deserted tropical island populated by turtles, crabs, and birds. So that film will get a limited release. The other limited release this week is The Resurrection of Gavin Stone, a washed-up former child star played by Brent Dalton, forced to do community service at a local megachurch, pretends to be a Christian to land the part of Jesus in their annual Passion play, only to discover that the most important role of his life is far from Hollywood. The film also stars Angela Johnson-Reyes, Neil Flynn, B.D. Sweeney, and WWE legend Shawn Michaels, because the film is produced by WWE Films. The next limited release this week is also a bit of an expansion release, is The Founder, based on the true story of a struggling salesman, Ray Kroc, played by Michael Keaton, who meets Mac, played by John Carroll Lynch, and Nick Offerman McDonald, yes, co-operators of the burger restaurants in the late 1950s Southern California, that of course will be known later as McDonald's. This is the story of how McDonald's was made and created. The film also stars Linda Cardellini, BJ Novak, Laura Dern, and Patrick Wilson. The film's getting some pretty decent reviews. It is essentially the real story of how McDonald's came to be, which I didn't know. Apparently Ray Kroc was a bit of a kind of a sleazy businessman a little bit. So we'll see kind of how that plays out. I didn't know the real story about McDonald's, and it looks like they're gonna release it to the world, and it looks pretty good. When I first saw the trailer, I think it was like it was like mid-summer last year. It didn't look too bad, so I can't wait to see. Hopefully, end up watching The Founder. All right, so there is one expansion release this week, which it's wide release, which is 20th Century Women. Ironically, of course, coming out on the 20th. The story of three women who explore love and freedom in Southern California during the late 70s. The film stars Annette Bening, Elle Flanny, Gerda Gerwig, Lucas J. Zuman, and Billy Crudup. The film has been getting some great reviews, so it's an expansion release, so if you want to go check that out, just check your local theater. It's also getting a wider release, so be aware of that. But your other big wide releases this week is Split, written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. After three girls are kidnapped by a man with 24 distinct personalities, they must find some of the different personalities that can help them while running away and staying alive from the others. The film stars Anya Taylor-Joy, James McAvoy, Haley Lou Richardson, Kim Director, Jessica Sula, and Betty Buckley. The film looks pretty good, and it's been getting some pretty good reviews. Look, M. Night Shyamalan is I feel still on the road to redemption for a lot of people, but The Visit, which was his last film, wasn't that bad. It was pretty good. It wasn't great, but it was pretty good. It was a good kind of return to form a little bit, and people are saying that Split is better than The Visit. I think I read somewhere that from one person that Split is his best film since The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, which says a lot. Some people will say those are his only two good films, but whatever. Not me, by the way. I'm just saying other people. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go watch it. I'm a huge fan of James McAvoy. The trailer, the very first trailer for the film, had me hooked. So I was all on board for this film the second I saw the first trailer. So maybe M. Night Shyamalan's back. Maybe he just needed a little break to, get his creative juices flowing again. So getting good reviews. So maybe the word of mouth will help out with Split. The other wide release, the final wide release this week, is of course XXX, the return of Xander Cage. Xander Cage, played by Vin Diesel, is left for dead after an accident, though he secretly returns to action for a new tough assignment with his handler Augustus Gibson, played by Samuel L. Jackson. The film also stars Donnie Yen, Chris Wu, Ruby Rose, Deepika Padukone, I think I'm pronouncing that name wrong by the way, Tony Jaa, Nina Dobrev, Rory McCann, Michael Bisping, and Toni Collette. This film looks absolutely ridiculous. Leastly awesome, because it looks, we know what we're walking into, all right? And this movie has Donnie Yen, so I don't care. I'm gonna go watch it. Yeah, I'm gonna go watch it. I don't care. It looks ridiculously awesome. It looks ridiculously cheesy, but what else do you expect from a XXX film? So, and I don't like the fact that they ruined what could have potentially been a very cheesy, albeit but cool moment in a TV spot with a returning character. If you haven't seen it, I won't ruin it for you on the podcast, but if you know what I'm talking about, then there's that. Because he wasn't announced that he was going to be returning. He wasn't in the trailers, he wasn't in the press releases. They gave it away in a TV spot, which seems kind of dumb, but whatever. Alright, so once again, your releases this week, your wide releases: XXX, The Return of Xander Cage; Split. You have the expansion release of 20th Century Women coming out. Also, your limited releases are The Founder, The Resurrection of Gavin Stone, and The Red Turtle. Alright, so now let us move on to our box office predictions. Last week, I was completely wrong because I underestimated the fact that people probably want to go watch La La Land after it won all those Golden Globes. So my predictions last week for the box office predictions were Hidden Figures at number 1, Patriots Day at number 2, Rogue One at number 3, Live by Night at number 4, and La La Land at number 5. Although I made the argument, since it was a kids movie, that Monster Trucks could be at the number 5 position. I was completely wrong, which I admitted last week that I would probably be wrong because it was a long weekend also. But the actual box office last week, Hidden Figures came in at number 1, La La Land came in at number 2, Sing came in at number 3, The Bye Bye Man came in at number 4, which sucked by the way if you don't watch it, and Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, came in at number 5. So that was your box office for last weekend, or Monday I should say, because of the long weekend. So my picks this week, I made these picks and I'm really hoping that one film does better than what I suggested. So I think that XXX will be the top movie of the week. Obviously it's Vin Diesel, it's XXX, it's an action film. Maybe when people want to go watch it, they just want to turn off their brains for a little bit. So XXX will probably be number 1. I think Hidden Figures will still be holding on to the top 3, at least for a while, because it is a film that's been getting a tremendous word of mouth. And it's a film that, this is a quote that's been going around, it's a film that we need right now, that America needs right now. So I think that's going to carry it a little bit for a while. And it's a good film. I'm not saying that it isn't a good film. I've talked about it here on the podcast, saying it is a good film. It gets a little melodramatic at times, but it gets over it right away. So Hidden Figures will be my number 2. I think La La Land and Split are going to be battling it out for the 3 position and 4 position. I don't know if maybe everyone that wants to go watch La La Land has already wants to go watch it. I know there's a lot of people out there saying that they don't like La La Land. Maybe they haven't even watched it yet, or they're like, it's a musical, I'm not going to go watch it. La La Land is actually a very good film. And the musical numbers in the film actually help the story. It's not just a musical for the sake of being a musical. People just don't burst out into song just because there hasn't been a musical number in 10 minutes. It is in my mind, it is a good film. It's a very classic callback to the films of old. So I did enjoy La La Land a lot. So I think that will be batting it out. I can't say battling it out. That's the first time. It's just, I don't know. I'm not editing that out. I'm leaving it in there. So La La Land and Split will be duking it out for the 3rd and 4th position. I hope Split does well, especially with a good positive word of mouth, and I hope people have finally forgiven M. Night Shyamalan, and I hope they get over the whole M. Night seeing his name attached to stuff and laughing and be like, nah, whatever. I hope they get over that. So, La La Land and Split will be duking it out for the number 3 and number 4, and I think that maybe Sing will be on the top 5, because it is really the only kids movie left out there. So parents will want to go take their kids to that. So once again, my box office predictions: Triple X, The Return of Xander Cage at number 1, Hidden Figures at number 2. Although I will not be surprised if Hidden Figures pulls another number 1 position. I will not be surprised by that. But my picks: Triple X at number 1, Hidden Figures at number 2. I will officially go with Split at number 3, La La Land at number 4, and Sing at number 5. Yeah, that's what I'm going to go with. I could be wrong about that. Watch I be wrong. Watch my move does nothing and just makes it more wrong. I'm not very good at this game. I've only gotten it right a few times. But yeah, so those are my picks this week. And thank you, everyone, all of you, for listening to the podcast this week. You guys have been great. You guys have been awesome. Let me know what your favorite news item of the week was. Let me know what movie you're looking forward toward this weekend. Or if you've already seen a movie this weekend and you're listening to this a lot later, let me know what you saw and let me know what you thought. So yeah. So also check out the trailers down below. If you want to be up to date on what we're going to talk about on the podcast, you can go like my Facebook page at facebook.com/moviepit. That's facebook.com/moviepit. Clickable link will be down below in the description/show notes area. Also, you can go check out my WordPress account where I do most of my reviews. I just uploaded a mini review packet of a bunch of films: Live by Night, Patriots Day, The Bye Bye Man, Underworld, Blood Wars, and Sleepless. My mini reviews for that are up there. You can also look forward toward my Split and Triple X reviews sometime this weekend or during the week. You can look forward to that. My WordPress account is movieswithchris.wordpress.com. Link again will be down below in the comments, or I'm sorry, the description/show notes area. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. Again, trailers also will be down there as well. But again, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. You guys have been great. Hopefully you guys have a safe, fun weekend this week. Just try to get over the fact of what's going on politically wise, unless you're a very big political person and you want the world to change and you don't accept all this going on, which you shouldn't. But just be safe, be smart about what you're doing and all the other stuff. All right, so I'm done. That's the closest thing that I'm gonna stop talking about politics on the podcast, because this is a movie podcast. So but yeah, be safe, be smart, have some fun this weekend, and as always, go watch some movies.
Yeah! Give it up! Movies!